All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to another video. Hopefully the third time is the charm, as this is the third time I'm trying to record this. So anyway, today's video is going to be about team building and what is looking very good. Of course, we're going to refer to Peachin's videos because Peachin's one of the few people who puts out the longest quality of videos, and we have a lot. We have to just talk about how ridiculous Peachin was this week. But even looking at other outside sources, team building is both an interesting topic and not an interesting topic when we get right down to it. So anyway, these videos, for the people who don't want to watch too terribly long and give me a ton of ad break revenue, I'm going to give you the brief report at the very start, hopefully within 2 minutes, but sometimes 3. So let's begin. First off, ever since the introduction of Ashen Mont and Spring June, it has become apparent that we are in a new power stratosphere, and that older characters, including the characters such as Volk, who still have yet to come out on global, are woefully unequipped to really deal with the increase in strength that these characters are showing. And let me just clarify a little bit about that. I'm not saying that Spring June could beat a team of 3 lightning characters on her own. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that the power disparity between Spring June, Ashen Mont, and basically every other character in the game is very, very, very apparent. They have 4th year anniversary abilities and inflated stats. They are absolutely tier 0 characters. And we will talk about the Advent characters, of course. It's going to be, again, not super interesting, maybe, but it is noteworthy. So yes, over this week, especially with the limited time events, I have put into sharp practice the use of both Ashen Mont as well as Spring June. And in everything from PvP to arena to every piece of content, they just excel at everything. And if you look at arena right now, the only people who are in top arena anymore are people who have these characters who are really excelling. And if you have both, you're excelling even harder, because the formula before seemed to be, well, maybe pure water or pure earth was the better one, and that just isn't holding true at all. It's something even simpler than that. But I just have to really state that Ashen Mont and Spring June are in a tier of their own. They are absolutely the strongest characters that the game has ever seen, and it might be the biggest power jump that the game has ever seen. And that's not bad. Those can be exciting. And it's not the time to complain about older characters being woefully unequipped as opposed to the newer characters. That's a different video, and one that I will make eventually, discussing that topic about what we should do to improve older characters. But yeah, it's really is, if you want the barest of minimums of explanations before I get into this video, yes, Ashen Mont and Spring June are still clearly the best characters in the game. However, Advent Children characters aren't exactly slouches either, as they are products of this new power jump. They have come in after the power jump, and they are benefiting from it. How much they are benefiting and where their places in teams is a little different of a topic. So let's get in and talk about team building depth. And starting off, I would like to refer back to Game 8 because I referred to it so hard in my previous video. And the fact that if you look on here, it hasn't changed. And this is the thing. Tier 1, Tier 0, and all of this, while they update their character rankings fairly regularly, they don't actually update team building too terribly much. So that was kind of when Spring June and Ashen Mont came along. We actually saw like these get updated in a big way. And that was pretty accurate. But since then, there have been a lot of changes about what is essentially the strongest team. And to that point, it's time to jump over and talk about everyone's favorite YouTuber, the guy who has every character max reincarnated somehow. Maybe he's a dev. I don't have any evidence, but now that I planted that thought, it's probably going to be at least said by a few other people as fact. Seriously, Pigeon is not. But taking a look at Pigeon, he has been an absolute monster ever since the introduction of Cloud this week. Starting off with Cloud's initial test video, then Tifa's initial test video, and then approximately an hour and 40 minutes worth of Cloud footage in all kinds of different teams, from Pure Light to Greatsword only to the Nightmare team that we're going to talk about, and as well throwing out a 45-minute video on Tifa 2. So let's talk about Tifa really quickly. And again, while I have seen there is, of course, fluctuations, and this is not set in stone because these characters have not been out that long, and Kadaj and Sephiroth are definitely going to mess with the meta over the next 2 weeks. Let's take a look at one of the team comps that are looking pretty effective with Tifa. And really quickly, it's not Strike. Strike, as a matter of fact, seems just very weak. And before you get too finger wavy, I'll say this. It's not Tifa's fault. Tifa is actually looking like the best Strike character by far. Not only that, but she is incredibly reliable at dropping Frostbite on opponents, which is really, 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 really good. What's also nice is that her teams don't require a massive cost, which is something we're going to come back to touch on in just a little bit. But the strongest team with Tifa seems to be absolutely based around this comp at the bottom and not a pure Strike comp. Her with Ashen Mont is really, really strong, and it seems to be a mixture with Oldoa and Tifa. Tifa brings into a kind of really nice ability to generate Frostbite and shutting down the opponent's AP acquisition. Also, these are cost-limited teams since JP is currently going through a bunch of cost-limited events. But essentially, Tifa's Frostbite is really, really reliable to trigger on, most opponents, which is really, really good. Problem is that when opponents have a lot of AP, he ends up not being as good. She really needs to land Frostbite sooner rather than later. But her and Ashen Mont is a pretty strong combination, and with Oldoa protecting them, it's fairly reliable. I will say this, coming back to the thing I started at the beginning of this video, Ashen Mont is essentially pretty key here because he is such a powerhouse of a character. But this in general team was not necessarily the strongest that I've seen this week. It is pretty interesting and probably could go into in depth on more what this team should look like on a week where limited cost is not a thing. But the overall order of the day seems to be that Tifa, don't hate on her. She's actually really good. Frostbite is really good. But if you're looking to put her in any comp right now, it's going to be Earth and Ice and essentially nothing else because it doesn't quite get there. Although throwing Jumin only if the job BCs, I think that's a little bit too spread out to be very reliable. So yeah, magnitude of order, Jum or Ashen Mont makes Tifa much, much better. Talking about Pure Light Elemental Cloud, didn't work as well this week. When Peachin released his 3 different videos, I have watched all 3 of them in depth, and he tested out a bunch of different things. He tested Cloud with Pure Light, which, as far as I'm concerned, looked shaky at best. Not incredibly impressive, and wasn't super great in matchups. What did look very strong at the beginning of the week was Cloud in just Pure Greatsword, which was Peachin's first video where he focused on just a buttload of matchups of essentially a comp, 2 different comps that he thought was going to be very, very successful. Just rewinding a little bit here. Cloud, A2, and Jum, and Cloud, Thunder Astrius, and Jum. Which isn't too surprising given that Greatswords are really, really powerful, and between the 2 of them, yeah, Thunder Astrius 1 seemed generally pretty nice, but the title of this video really lays into fact of how kind of sad it is going to be that most people are just never, ever possibly going to achieve this. First of all, you'll notice King Bradley's TMR is effectively on most units that are featured in these team building videos, as well as the new version of Ketone, Ashen Ketone, whose TMR is also on this team. But it doesn't stop there. You also have the Reliquary Greatsword, which needs to be maxed. Dark Titan, just for flair, because he's a new powerful summon that has come out on JP. The first of Advent Children's new Holo VCs, the Thunder Dragon VC, A2's VC, the Winter Wrath VC as well, which basically, this is one of the most expensive teams that you could possibly think. 3 really big 100 cost characters, Ice or Thunder variant, but for all intents and purposes, Thunder seemed to be generally pulling ahead. Of course, that's not the end of the story. So now we get to the part that's just really, really fun. The absolutely infuriatingly expensive and terrifying strongest team is about as boring as you can possibly think. It is essentially just the 3 newest 100 cost characters who have all experienced a power jump, and you can't really blame it. As I stated at the beginning of this video, JP, this is one of Wotv's biggest power jumps without an incremental boost starting for older characters, which has left newer characters in a league of their own. And as it turns out, when you put those 3 characters and they have enough job VCs to essentially support it, well, good things happen. And so, looking at this, we get the kind of end thing with the same 2 TMRs that I mentioned in the previous video, which, yes, Ashen Ketone as well as King Bradley's TMRs are heavily featured on all of Peachin's videos, as well as many other just top-level guild tier teams. But being incredibly limited, I'm not going to say that that's really a thing. But, so anyway, what else? Well, we have the Blood Sword up to +1, of course, the Reliquary Greatsword, as well as the Reliquary Armor. 2 white hats for status effect protection to make this team just generally more reliable and strong. Chaos Bahamut, Chaos Titan, as well as Odin, which Odin might be just in general the cheapest thing on this frickin' team. Continuing on, we have Cloud's new Holo VC, the Hayu Greatsword VC, the not Melee. Oh my goodness. The Earth Gunner Girl, the 100 cost one, forgive me. That VC, as well as the FF5 Kiryu Human Killer VC, the FF1 War Machine VC maxed, of course, and the A2 Holo VC. And the results are pretty damn clear. This is definitely one of, if not the strongest team setup bar none. It has so many things that just effectively make it really, really good. Cloud is essentially amazing at being magic resistant, which means that mage teams are essentially bad here, but Jooms also just happens to be bad. Then you have Ashen Mont, who can effectively silence mages, which, well, strangely enough, just kills them and kills teams. You throw them up against pure elements. Well, these doesn't have particularly a great weakness that is shared between them. Light is just completely out. You need a dark-based character, and even then you would have no real advantage, as dark characters are incredibly behind the time right now. Doom, Ashen Mont, as well as Cloud also have incredible durability and some healing potential as well, making them really, really hard to kill. Doom effectively brings this team incredibly together, not even mentioning, preemptive counters that you just saw there, but we also get into the sharp relief about how effectively strong it is that she can debuff all elements, meaning that she can work on a multi-elemental team and make a multi-elemental team much, much stronger. So there just isn't a really good answer to this team short of a new character coming out that will be incredibly, really powerful. And that's the thing. As much as I have said that is incredibly positive about this team right now, there's something that you need to realize, which is I don't think it's going to last too terribly long. The thing is that this team just leverages the fact that it has overall higher stats on newer characters with very, very strong abilities. And that's enough to be really, really, really successful when it needs to be. And it's working. But as more and more powerful characters come out, it's going to change and change fast. And if there is, in fact, anything that is going to power up older characters in the near future, well, guess what? This team won't be that strong. This is essentially the whaliest whale team of just being like, hey, this is everything new. Of course it's better. It's the fact that the PS5 came out, your friend has it in all the PS5 games, and it's really, really freaking cool. Or anyway, just follow this metaphor for a second. And you have an old PS4. You just can't compete to this. And yeah, it's not too terribly surprising. The team on the left is what I would consider to be the best team. It is incredibly expensive and very unobtainable and not even super relevant this week on JP, as we're experiencing a limited cost event essentially everywhere, which means that it's impossible to run that team anyway. But for people who are curious about team building right now, the order of magnitude on JP is more than likely going to be stifled for a bit, just because this is essentially well, we just threw everything new together and it's way better. The previous weeks where you had Volk, Dario, and Old Toa all vying for incredible tanks that pushed a lot of teams back was kind of a little bit more chaotic and therefore maybe a little bit more interesting team. But right now, it's very clear to me what is effectively powerful. And just to sum up this video in relation to Advent Children, since this is kind of the Advent Children week, Cloud and Tifa. Let's talk about their future. I think that Tifa does have potential, especially if we do get strike support, but I'm just not convinced that Gumi can do that because guess what? Strike characters aren't exactly a dime a dozen, but sword characters are. Tifa, I think, will have a decent future, and as a, more free-to-play friendly character, he is someone that I feel generally okay investing into, but your mileage on Frostbite is essentially one of the things that is propping her up really hard. As for Cloud, I think will be generally pretty safe, but I want to make one thing clear. Game 8, going back to that for a second, Game 8 says that, if you look at it, it says that Cloud and Tifa are quadruple S tier. I think they put that there just because of the job board. But everything that I've seen so far, yeah, I'm going to still say that Spring Joom and Ashen Mont are still a tier cut, if you will, above what Advent Children characters are. With Kadaj arriving next week and Sephiroth shortly after, though, it'll be anything but predictable as to how the future will definitely go. Sephiroth could be bad. Anyway, I hit my video mixer. I apologize, but I'm leaving it in. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.